What's up, YouTube? I'm Brett from Rants. As always, guys, if y'all enjoy our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Alright, guys. Game of Thrones ending cost HBO half of its adult viewers. I bet y'all don't know the reason why. Bet you do, though. A review of television networks in 2020 conducted by Variety showed that over the course of the last year, HBO lost 51% of its adult audiences. 51%. Ages 18 to 49. The significant drop in audience has been attributed to the conclusion of Game of Thrones, which has not yet seen a replacement. The show drew an increasingly large audience and broke numerous records, culminating in an average of approximately 12 million viewers by season 8. Okay. Alright, so we're going to touch on this a little bit. This is the end, and this is my opinion of why HBO kind of gets what they deserve when it comes to this. Okay, first off, DB Weiss and Benioff, they dropped the ball. They were overrated. They got too big of a head. HBO started buying into the love for them a little too much. So much so that they basically placed all the chips on the table and was like, you know what? We ride or die with them. And they died, basically. Weiss and Benioff killed HBO for a considerable amount of years. One, because, okay, they spent a lot of money on the dragons and on the landscape and all that for season 8. And what did they get out of it? Nothing. They got, well, I'll tell you, they got the loss of spinoffs. They got fan outrage about rewatchability factor. Because fans just completely felt like HBO had just given them the finger. Felt like DB Weiss and Benioff had given them the finger to a certain extent. Because they had no love for the main characters. You know, it's almost kind of like Disney's sequel trilogy. They only brought the original characters back to kill them. Like, they, you know, there's this, Kylo Ren makes this statement in Star Wars, kill the past, let the past die, kill it if you must, or something along those lines. Well, that's kind of the way Weiss and Benioff kind of felt towards these characters. Fan favorite characters, they were basically like, you know what? We know that they're fan favorites. We know, but we're going to do something unexpected. They bought into their own glamour and glory that they thought that they could make these characters have these change of character turning points, change of personality turning points that fans would just be so amazed by. Fans were distraught by it. Tyrion, Jon Snow, Daenerys, all of those characters didn't, by the end of the show, did not feel anything like they did at the original part of the show. The first few seasons of it. They felt like completely different characters. The love that I had for a lot of those characters were completely just cast aside. It was cast aside, like, take Jon Snow, for instance. Jon Snow, you know, it was set up all those years of, well, he's going to be the one that's going to kill the Night King. At the end of the season, or at the end of, or the beginning of season 8, you know, when they have the Battle of Winterfell, you just have Jon Snow yelling at a dragon, and you have Arya coming in there and saving the day. Okay. That is a part that I would argue was Weiss and Benioff looking at the surrounding times that we have in our modern day, and they're thinking, we can't have the man save the day. We have to have a woman save the day. And Arya was the best example of when a trope just goes bad. And that's exactly what just happened on that. There was no basis story-wise for Arya to be the one that does that. There was just no basis to it. It made no sense. It was just completely and totally pointless. Then they kind of left that Bran kind of that ambiguous ending with Bran where you don't really know if he's like evil or what, you know. You don't know because the storytelling really didn't add up. There wasn't a lot of these loose ends that people thought was going to be concluded at the end of Game of Thrones. Wasn't. There was D.B. Weiss and Benioff had in their minds greener pastures, and they wanted to rush this series. And they didn't care how many loose ends that they had to leave if it meant finishing this show so they can get to Star Wars or other projects that they had lined up. You know, they were the flavor of the month and they were trying to get as much out of it as possible. I felt like, you know, when you had George R.R. Martin saying that it needed to be more seasons and, you know, the episode count needed to stay about the same for them really to have a proper ending for the show. Weiss and Benioff didn't feel that way. They felt like they could shorten the episodes, the episode seasons, or the episodes, and then shorten the amount of seasons and still get an ending that fans would buy. They took fans for granted. They thought that fans, because it was Game of Thrones, would just accept anything and everything. They bought into their own glamour and glory. They thought that they could do no wrong. They thought at this point everybody thought they were great, and then they started thinking they were great. And HBO, for some reason, they either bought into it or either they kind of looked at it and said, well, you know what? This cutting down the episode count will probably help on the budget, and they probably got a little bit stingy with their money. They thought that Game of Thrones fans wouldn't notice or care, and they were wrong. You know, so now after that, you've got Weiss and Benioff basically. No fan wants them to be a part of any series that they care about because of that bad ending. You have HBO that all these spinoffs had to be canceled because of it, that bad ending. And then HBO's kind of in no man's land. They're like, well, okay, what do we do now? We'll make this House of the Dragon, all Fire and Blood novel. Well, maybe that'll get a lot of Game of Thrones fans back. You think that they're going to get 12 million fans back? Not a chance. Not a chance. They might get 6 billion. I would be shocked. I would be shocked if House of the Dragon concludes in a natural way. I have a feeling it will probably be canceled after about season 2 or season 3 because HBO is going to look at it and say, oh, well, it's good. It might have good ratings, but it's not drawing in Game of Thrones ratings. I think to a certain extent, HBO got spoiled. They got used to Game of Thrones ratings, and they thought, well, okay, any spinoff, any show that we make from now on will have those kind of ratings. We'll just replace it with something that will replace it. And make it into the next Game of Thrones. They don't work out. I remember when everybody was saying that The Witcher was going to be the next Game of Thrones. How did that turn out? That didn't even pale in comparison to Game of Thrones. It didn't get the viewership that Game of Thrones had. It just wasn't as good of a story as what Game of Thrones had. People didn't really feel like the characters were relatable. Everybody's talking always about the next big Game of Thrones from these different series, and there just isn't one. That was a cultural phenomenon that maybe happens once every 10 to 15 years. it'll happen again. I don't know if it will be in the near future. And I definitely don't think House of the Dragon is going to be it. I really don't. I think House of the Dragon is going to be a success, but not probably to the success that HBO will want. And I think HBO will conclude it pretty soon afterwards, that once it doesn't get the ratings that Game of Thrones get. But overall, I think HBO, Weiss, and Benioff's hubris got the best of them. And now HBO is really having struggles. They're going down. They're not getting the viewership that they want. They're trying to get people excited about House of the Dragon. But you go to any Game of Thrones fan site or House of the Dragon fan site, and you see nothing about excitement for House of the Dragon. You see it all about Game of Thrones still. So, I don't think this show will live up to the quality of Game of Thrones in a lot of different ways. I don't think it'll live up budget-wise, and I don't think it'll live up character-wise or story-wise. So, overall, I think HBO, you get what you deserve. You put too much trust in people you should never put trust into. I feel like fans maybe put too much trust in Weiss and Benioff. They thought that they had the best interests at heart, and they didn't. I feel like George R. R. Martin should really be pissed about this because, he tried to put on a happy face about it. Tried to say, well, that ending wasn't that much different from his own. But he would have to be crazy to have the exact same ending in his books as what it was on the television show. There was too much outrage. But, even if he did, there'll be more steps that'll kind of explain that kind of ending. But overall, I just feel like HBO dropped the ball, Weiss and Benioff dropped the ball, and they kind of all get what they deserve in it. But as always, guys, thanks for watching.